Do not let the state administer your family's future. I would like to welcome you to another episode of The Foundation. My name is Sot L, Seeker of Truth L, Speaker of Truth L. Listen, when you pass on, who do you want managing your legacy? Your family or the state? With public wills and statutory trusts, your estate often enters probate. That means delays, court costs, and possible challenges. But with properly formed private trusts, your assets are administered privately, seamlessly, and without court involvement. You choose your trustees, you set the rules. The state doesn't get a say. Don't let a government system write your family's future. Protect it today through private trusts and private trusted education. Hey, welcome to The Foundation. On this episode, we're going to get into probate. And maybe you would say, why, so what's going on? Well, I would say that, I have a couple clients and a friend of mine going through probate right now. It's unfortunate. We're getting to an age where, potentially we could be losing those who gave us life in the physical form. You understand what I'm saying? So I definitely want to talk about, probate and how just the problems and how we can avoid it right now and get set up. But, first I want to announce the winner for the AirPods, the what are they called? Apple AirPods. We did a giveaway. We have a winner. The winner's name is Just Average Jeff on YouTube. Just Average Jeff. Look, we tried to go to your page and send you an email. It bounced back. Didn't work. We can't get a hold of you. So in light of, the giveaway and being able to get a hold of the winners, we're going to give you 7 days to contact us. You got to email support at welcometothefoundation.com, and you got to, prove that you own that YouTube account. So Just Average Jeff, congratulations. You won a giveaway. That's dope. I like winning things, you know what I mean? Also, we are giving away an iPad mini. We'll announce those details soon. We have a lot of things changing here. But I did want to announce that I forgot last show. And that's my bad. But yeah, several clients are dealing with probate. So, let's get into the show. You know how we do. Let's do a dance. And that dance begins with these steps. Make sure you check out welcometothefoundation.com. We ask that you minimum sign up for the email list. Here's the box right here. Got a lot of information. If you want to make a donation, if you like what we've been doing for the past 10 years. It's been 10 years. It's crazy. We started off on high frequency with Yusuf L. We're still good with Yusuf L. High frequency is the team. And it's been 10 years. It's a luxurious dance. But I do want to say that, we got a lot of information on here. We got the Foundation Trust Primer. I used to get people asking me, where do I start? You got a lot of information on this stuff. Where do I start? This is where you start. Foundation Trust Primer. We have the Foundation Trust Series, Part 1, Part 2, and Part 3. Those are the series are DVDs. The primer, those are documents. Those are over 18 hand-picked documents by me. That's what's in the primer. We also got, you can get at our YouTube, which you're probably checking out right now, you know what I mean? Also, the documents. We have a bunch of documents available that aren't necessarily dealing with private trust, but we saw them for sale online somewhere else. You can send us a message, but honestly, we get spam. All we do is get spam with this, man. We don't even get real messages. So I think we're going to take this out, this contact thing. Support at welcometothefoundation.com. Also admin at welcometothefoundation.com. We also have the most affordable Most luxurious trustee training available, period. Period. Teach you how to administer trust. People are looking for the benefits of trust. It requires the knowledge. This is not a timed course, anything that you need to do in a specific amount of time. There's really no tests, anything like that. It's learn at your own pace. You will learn how to administer private trusts. You will learn how to title assets, open checking accounts, brokerage accounts, title real estate. You will learn if you do the work. This is it. Link in the description of this video if you would like to sign up for trustee training. And let me just get into this, because look, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I'm enjoying life, but I want to get into this. As I said, I even spoke to a client today who's dealing with probate. I have a friend who's dealing with probate. I have a few other clients who are dealing with probate, and it's difficult. It's very difficult. It takes a lot of time. The state's in control. The state has control of the timing. The state has a full window into your private life. No privacy. You got death tax, estate tax. You have income tax. Usually, most people don't pass away on December 31st. So you have that. You have inheritance tax if there's things left over. These things are a problem, especially if you're dealing with a family business, and it was titled in one of in your parents' name, or one of them. These things can last a long time. Why are you talking about this? So because there's such a better way to do what we're doing, in a very similar form and fashion of what we're doing already. And I like to tell people, especially new trustees, I like to say, listen, anything that will get you fired or written up at your job will get you in trouble with regards to administering trust. It's very simple. Ooh, you like that chair, that desk chair with the wheels and stuff? It's got the real leather. Yours is not real. You know it isn't. And you take it home, and you don't have an authorization or authority, a delegation of authority from somewhere to do that, you're probably going to get fired. They're going to call it theft. And if it's real leather, it's probably going to be over $500 or $700 or whatever it is in your jurisdiction, which requires it to be a felony. Same thing with a trust. That's called commingling on the trust side. Or self-dealing, depending on how you look at it. Self-dealing usually has to do more with contracting, setting up certain areas, selling yourself an item or property of the trust for a very, very cheap price, below market value. Take some of the petty cash from, your boss's office without getting permission. These are the things that, it's easily applied, in my opinion. A lot of people feel as though, their intelligence level is below this. It's not. I'm going to tell you, it's not. 99% of the people, it's not. There's been what I would like to say, a psychological operation that has been performed on the American people that has convinced us that, we are no longer civilians or studied in law. We have to hire attorneys or lawyers. And, all this stuff is above our pay grade. It's not. It's not. People say, I don't have time. Yeah, you do. You don't make time, you take time. But I understand people are busy. You have jobs, you have overtime, you have to do things of that nature. It happens. But that's why I say 99% of people who are walking this earth can administer a trust. So let's get into this. How do I want to jump into this? Let's talk about probate, right? Probate. This is Investopedia. What it is, and how it works with and without a will. Okay, what is probate? Let's go through it. The process completed when a decedent leaves assets to distribute, such as bank accounts, real estate, and financial investments. Probate is the general administration of a deceased person's will or the estate of a deceased person without a will. An executor is commonly named in the will or an administrator. If there is no will, which is intestate, when you die intestate means no will. To complete the probate process, this involves collecting the deceased assets to pay any remaining liabilities on their estate and distributing the assets to beneficiaries. And this usually comes with an inheritance tax to the beneficiaries. They got to pay a tax. Key takeaways, let's go through this. Probate is a legal proceeding. We got that. It reviews the assets. Is that private? That's not private. They review the assets. Hold on. What is this, a court? Is it the legal? They're going through my stuff. Probate proceedings typically focus on the existence, authenticity, and validity of a will. So they're trying to, break it. Probate can be initiated with or without a will. A proceeding is usually essential when a deceased person's remaining estate is of high value, even when there is a will. And people say, I can avoid probate by having a will. Okay. All right. Individuals can avoid exorbitant probate costs and complexities by having an easily authenticated will or using investment vehicles that do not require probate. Y'all catch that? Investment vehicles. We'll go back to that. How probate works. Let's jump into this. What we got? Probate is the analysis and transfer administration of estate assets previously owned by a deceased person. So basically, when you die, you don't own the stuff anymore. It was previously owned. When a property owner dies, their assets are commonly reviewed by a probate court. Commonly, not all the time. This court provides the final ruling on the division and distribution of assets to beneficiaries. What? The final ruling? Listen, I'm passionate about this stuff, and, people be like, this dude's weird. Listen, until you experience having to go through probate and having these people go through your family's stuff and tell you what you got to do and force a liquidation or sell some certain items or assets, you listen, hopefully you don't have to. You will never have to deal with probate. A probate proceeding will typically begin by analyzing whether or not the deceased person has provided a legalized will. So legalized I would just assume, I'm not a lawyer, I don't give legal advice, tax advice, none of that stuff. I don't claim to give it. I will never claim to give it. I could be crazy. Don't listen to me. But I would say a legalized will would be notarized. And then it can be authenticated on the state level, which means that the Secretary of State certifies that notary was a valid notary at the time of the notarization of that document. That's what I would say would be legalized. In many cases, the deceased person has established documentation which contains instructions on how their assets should be distributed after death. Sounds like a will to me. However, in some cases, the deceased does not leave a will. There are special circumstances that occur with both situations that we've listed below. Factors for probate law. Probate law is the field of law that determines how an estate must be divided. Must. Requirement. Control. Each state has its own laws and statutes, requirements to determine if and how an estate must be probated. Common factors include size of the estate. In some states, anything more than $3,000 must be probated. What? There's filing fees. Listen, there's fees. Listen. In others, the limit is as high as $200,000. Whether the estate includes real estate, bang, they're going to try to pull into probate immediately. Whether or not there is a surviving spouse, the number of motor vehicles the estate has. This is assets, this is money. Motor vehicles, real estate, money. The presence of a will and the number of named heirs, any liens, debts, or taxes due on the estate, basically by the deceased person. It's no longer owned by the person who died. Boom. Now it's owned by an estate that's governed by state law. It's a field of law. State has its own laws and statutes. Man, a deceased person with a will is known as a testator. When a testator dies, the executor is responsible for initiating the probate process. What? You said you can avoid a probate without a trust? You just need a will? The executor is typically a family member, and that is stressful. Listen, you just lost someone. Now you got to deal with the courts and deal with the fear, right? And this is real. The fear of messing up their assets, what they worked their entire personal life to obtain, and not fulfilling their requests, or doing wrong by them and having sleepless nights. Did I do the right thing? This is not cool. It's not cool. I think it's very irresponsible to die intestate, and I think it's very irresponsible, in my opinion, to depend on a will. But work all week and party all weekend. I don't know. The executor is responsible for filing the will with the probate court. Is there a filing fee? States can have different rules for the time frame in which a will must be filed after death. Filing the will initiates the probate process. The probate process is a court-supervised proceeding in which the authenticity of the will left behind is proven to be valid and accepted as the true last testament of the deceased. The court officially appoints the executor named in the will, which gives the executor the legal power to act on behalf of the deceased. A will typically designates, there's an S missing, designates a legal representative or executor approved by the court. Approved by the court. This person is responsible for locating and overseeing all the assets of the deceased. You can have random people coming into your house, grabbing stuff. It's not cool if you're going through the emotions of loss. The executor has to estimate the value of the estate by using either the date of death value or the alternative valuation date as specified by the Internal Revenue Code. Most assets that are subject to probate administration come under the supervision of the probate court in the place where the decedent lived at the death. The exception is real estate. Probate for real estate may need to be extended to the county in which the real estate is located. The executor also has to pay off any taxes and debt owed by the deceased from the estate. Like, I just ain't going to pay him. Okay, you're just going to get paid unless you do your dance. Creditors usually have a limited amount of time, approximately 1 year, from the date of death to make any claims against the estate. Claims that are rejected by the executor can be taken to court, where a probate judge will have the final say on whether or not a claim is justified. The executor is responsible for filing the final personal income tax return. See? On behalf of the deceased, any estate taxes that are pending can also come due within 1 year from the date of death. After the inventory of the estate has been taken, they're going to inventory private property, y'all. You understand? The value of assets is calculated, and they're going to tell you what it's worth. And they're going to pay off debts. Then the executor will then seek authorization from the courts to distribute whatever is left of the estate to the beneficiaries. Ooh. If a deceased person's estate is insolvent, which means that their debts outweigh their assets, an administrator will likely choose to initiate probate. In general, individual states may have their own rulings on a statute of limitations for the proceedings of a will through probate. States can also have thresholds for probate filings. And it goes in. Listen, we're going to keep going. I ain't going to read all this, but listen, there's points in here. When a person dies without a will, this is important. He or she is said to have died intestate. An intestate estate is also one where the will presented to the court has been deemed to be invalid. The probate, and do you know that they can deem a will to be invalid, man? The probate process for an intestate estate includes distributing the decedent's assets according to the state laws. If a deceased person has no assets, probate may not be necessary. In general, a probate court proceeding usually begins with the appointment of an administrator to oversee the estate of the deceased. The administrator functions as executor, receiving all legal claims against the estate and paying off outstanding debts. And there's also, in some states, it's a personal representative or PR. It's called a personal representative. The administrator is tasked with locating any legal heirs of the deceased, including surviving spouses, children, and parents. And if they can't find you, they can't find you. They just put an affidavit in saying that they did, they looked. The probate court will assess what assets need to be distributed among the legal heirs. The probate court will assess what your personal assets will be distributed among the legal heirs and how to distribute it. Come on, man. The probate laws in most states divide property among the surviving spouse and children of the deceased. Asset transfer to the government is known as escheatment. States do typically have a time frame for the claiming of any assets by an heir who may step forward. Escheatment. That's where the word cheat came from. Spouses, joint property owners, community property. These laws can recognize both spouses as joint property owners. In an intestate proceeding, in effect, the distribution hierarchy typically starts with the surviving spouse. If unmarried or widowed at the time of death, assets are usually divided among any surviving children. After a spouse and children are considered, other relatives may also be deemed appropriate for distribution. It could be your cousin, Frank, who you could never stand. Your entire life, stole everything from you, kept stealing your stuff. Or was always, every time he was around you, was hating. Absolutely hating. Beat his women and stuff. Just a terrible, terrible man. Your cousin could get a check. You understand? Close friends of the deceased will not normally be added to the list of beneficiaries under a state's probate laws for intestate estates. However, if the deceased had a joint account with right of survivorship or own property jointly with another, the joint asset would automatically be owned by the surviving partner. Which means that leaves the family. The asset leaves the family. Is probate always required? It is important to know whether a probate is required following the death of an individual. The probate process can take a long time to finalize, and they say like 2 to 4 years. And they're not playing when they say that. They're not playing. I'm telling you, they're not playing. Which means you could be losing your house, and that after this probate, you're going to have the money to pay off your house. But it doesn't matter. Because the personal representative or the executor could be like, well, that's not part of the estate. That's not a part of the decedent's estate. And, unless you can produce contracts, blah, blah, blah. My father would have loaned it. Well, I'm not your father, and I have a fiduciary responsibility. Listen, you can get different states have different laws concerning probate and whether probate is required after the death of a testator. Some states have a specified estate value which requires probate. For example, probate laws in Texas hold that if the value of the estate is less than $75,000, then probate may be skipped. That's with the will. If an estate is small enough to bypass probate process, then the estate's assets may be claimed using alternative legal actions, such as an affidavit. Typically, if a deceased person's debts exceed their assets, probate is not necessarily initiated, and alternative actions may be taken. The cost of probate process varies depending on your state and your lawyer. In some states, it is typical for the estate is appointed a personal representative or executor, and it's also appointed an attorney. And they pay the attorney and the personal representative or executor out of the decedent's estate. So before the assets are even distributed to the beneficiaries, they're paying the lawyer, they're paying the executor, they're paying the creditors, they're paying the taxes. Really, which state has the best probate laws? 18 states have adopted the Uniform Probate Code, which offers a standardized procedure for dividing a decedent's assets. The states that have adopted this code are Idaho, Alaska, Arizona, Colorado, Minnesota, Montana, Nebraska, South Dakota, New Mexico, Utah, Michigan, Maine, Pennsylvania, Minnesota again. Dang, they adopted it twice. That's crazy. That's unprecedented. I've never seen anything like that. South Carolina, Hawaii, North Dakota, New Jersey, and Massachusetts. How do you avoid probate? Each state has its own limit to determine how much, blah, blah, blah. Smaller estates may be able to go through a simplified. In addition, some assets, such as living trusts, some living trusts, and 401k plans do not need to go through the probate process. Since the probate process is expensive, it is worth researching your state's probate rules during the end-of-life planning. How many of us actually do end-of-life planning? And you look at the ancient Egyptians, they built monuments to their death. I think we may be out of order. Let's get in order. Check this out. Finance strategist. And y'all know I like to use public available information to push home the narrative of the foundation, because I didn't make this up. This has existed before I even existed. Does a trust avoid probate? Yes. A properly set up and funded trust can avoid probate. When assets are placed into a trust, they are legally owned by the trust, not the individual. Boom. That's what you're looking for. Therefore, upon the individual's death, the assets are not subject to the probate process. Instead, the designated trustee manages the distribution of assets directly to the named beneficiaries as per the terms of the trust. Now, this is a living trust. Private trusts, assets don't have to be distributed. Why? Especially if you have real estate that's titled in a trust. Why would you title the real estate outside of a trust and into an individual name again? Like that's the reverse order. That's like hitting the ball and then running left to third base. We're looking to get the assets and the value out of the public and titled privately, not the other way around. And I will contend that titling in any asset or having any account or checking account or anything in the individual name is not private. However, it's important to note that not all types of trusts can avoid probate. For instance, testamentary trusts, which are created through a will, do not bypass probate. Oh, I can use his will and avoid probate. Proper legal advice is advised to ensure that the trust is set up properly. How assets are managed in trust, transfer of ownership, trusts versus no trusts in probate. Consider two scenarios. One where a deceased person has a trust in place and one without. In the former scenario, the first, the trust assets can be transferred to beneficiaries almost immediately after death or held in the trust. They don't want to tell you that, though. In contrast, without a trust, the estate must go through probate, which can be a lengthy and expensive process. Types of trusts that avoid probate. Revocable living trusts. Upon death, the trust becomes irrevocable, and the successor trustees distributes the assets to the beneficiaries per the trust terms, bypassing probate. So that would be a revocable living trust. Irrevocable trust. This is ones we like. We love these. Hint, hint. Once created, these trusts cannot be altered or revoked without the consent of the beneficiaries. Specifically, they can't. It has to be the board of trustees. The beneficiaries have no voting power. They have no power of an administration in a private trust, and they should not ever have power of administration in a private trust. Please understand that, because that sounds like some sort of an association. And no. All trusts avoid probate. Cost of setting up a trust. Listen, this isn't even me talking. But once created, these trusts cannot be altered or revoked without the consent of the beneficiaries. Transferring assets into this kind of trust removes them from the trust maker's taxable estate, meaning they're not subject to probate or estate taxes. This is legal avoidance. This is when people who know speak on legal tax avoidance. I'm not an attorney. Don't take this. Nope. But when people who know speak on legal tax avoidance, they're not just talking about income taxes, man. Because, properly structured, wealthy families and individuals who come through those families, their taxes are already low to begin with. Because tax on investment income is 15%. Look it up. Unless they raised it, and I doubt they did because you got your guy Trump in office right now. So consider that. So, they're not taxed in the same bracket off top as, employees, the common worker class. But when you combine this knowledge with trust administration knowledge and actual trust structures, they're not subject to probate or estate taxes. You create a private family trust that lasts for multiple generations. How do the rich get richer? Using structures that never die. It's the same bank account from 1900 whatever, and I'm not playing. It's the same brokerage account from 1956. That's the same property that has been in our family, since my great-great-great-grandmother. All of that's trust. Those are private trusts. Period. How does the world move? I'll drop a jewel. You hear these on the news. If you're into the news and you watch, you're into politics and they talking about these. Oh, we have NGOs, non-governmental organizations, and they're doing this. And listen, when you hear NGO, that is a trust. It's a specific type of trust. It's a tax exempt trust. It's private though. It's called a private foundation, and it's a non-governmental organization. There's private family foundations and there's private foundations. These are NGOs. This is going on every day. We just don't see it. We just don't. It's right in front of our face. In one ear, out the other. Listen, and it's just more than probate. I'm speaking on this because, I'm personally dealing with, people who are dealing with probate. Personally. But ultimately. This affects everyone. This may affect me depending on the choices that I make. Actually, this will not affect me because of the choices I have made. But these structures never die. That's the number one. They never die. Number two, you're able to do certain things. These types of trusts are considered financial vehicles if you have the proper knowledge. It's ridiculous. But just titling assets, the things that you've worked your life to achieve and attain. And you rewind the show, you see what they're going to do if you don't have a trust. You see what they're going to do. And if you got a will, they got a uniform code for that, probate code for that. I'm going to avoid probate. That's the sales pitch. That's not the truth. The truth is the only true way to avoid probate is that if the decedent didn't own anything, if the decedent didn't have checking accounts in the name of the decedent with value in it, cash or whatever you call it, if the decedent didn't have any property titled in the name of the decedent, that holds value. If the decedent doesn't have any cars or trucks or vehicles titled in the decedent's name that have value, there's nothing to probate. There's no need for a will. Oh, why would you, whatever. In the private, they create trusts for their children. Their children are administered to the trust. They're the trustees. You think they own that car. They don't own that car. That car is titled to a trust that they administer. Own nothing, control everything. Understand, not only are we dealing with, three-dimensional reality, what is it? Time, space, and matter, right? In this public area, and what we're dealing right now, if you can close your eyes and understand what I'm saying, we're dealing with creations, natural creations, fruit created, me and you created, right? Then you have forms, and then you have fictions. Forms, easy. It's your desk, it's the car, it's the house, it's the clothes on your back, it's the light that you stop at the corner of the block. The block is a form. The concrete is formed. Then you have fictions. Fictions are usually titled, but you have fictions in the mind as well. A police officer is a fiction. A stop sign is a fiction. It's not natural. You can't dig up a stop sign and spray it with water and then, put it on a corner. It doesn't happen. Same thing with a police officer. Same thing with, now I'm not saying fictions aren't necessary. They are. In a lot of cases, a lot of situations, I said cations, a lot of situations, fictions are necessary. But whether they are necessary or not, we must all understand creations, forms, and fictions. The individual is in a fiction. I don't care what you say. The individual is a fiction. Birth certificate doesn't have your family seal on it. It's a state seal. What's happening? Were you ever issued a social security card? I don't know. I doubt you were ever, they walked up on you and handed it to you. They were the men in black. I mean, what happened? I don't know. You can believe what you want to believe, but the truth is the truth. And because we don't acknowledge the truth of what the individual is and what the social security number does and what the implications of these two documents are, we deal with probate. We deal with income taxes, crazy. We deal with death taxes, inheritance taxes, sales taxes. Listen, left and right. All I know is the fiction, the government, the state of or whatever, did not give me life or energy. But they figured out a way to tax my energy. That was a problem for me. And when searching for a solution to that problem, this is what I found. Private contractual trusts. The trust that's a contract. The trust, but it's really a contract. The trust that's cast or crafted in contract form, where only how the income is dispersed and how the income is taxed comes under trust law. Everything else is contract law. Do you understand what that means? Contract makes the law. So that's what I'm saying. I appreciate you checking out the show. Let me wrap this up because I don't want to take up too much of your time. And I feel like I got my point across. If I didn't, please leave a comment, email, whatever. Whatever you choose, whatever's more comfortable for you. I will respond personally because, this is a subject. I don't understand why people aren't running to get trust. We look at these pyramids and, these tombs and, and we're like, wow. But what are we going to leave? What are we going to leave for the next generation? And are we going to allow? Are we? Are you going? Hey, listen, here, this one right here. Check it out. You going to allow the state to administer your family's future? Like I said, you could be going through a foreclosure, and your wealth that is yours, your inherent right, your inherent right, inherited. I don't know. You should check out. But it's under control of the state, and this is just one of the facets, one of the dynamics of private trust. This is the reason why I've been teaching this for over 10 years. This is the reason why I probably will not stop teaching this until I stop breathing, because trust is the foundation. It's beneficial in so many ways you don't understand. It's one of them things you just keep discovering how beneficial these structures are and how powerful they are and how beneficial they are. So with that being said, congratulations to Just Average Jeff. You won the AirPods, brother. Get a hold of us. Support at welcometothefoundation.com or admin at welcometothefoundation.com. Y'all remember, incorrect information incorrectly applied can get you hurt. Correct information incorrectly applied can get you hurt. So we're always looking to correctly apply that correct information here at the foundation. I want to say big shout out to my brother Yusufel. and definitely peace to you. Keep doing your dance. Keep doing your dance. You know, if you're walking the path, it's lonely. People don't appreciate the sacrifices you're making. People don't appreciate the demons you're exercising. People don't appreciate all the work you're doing internally. People don't even appreciate the consideration and respect you begin to show everyone. They don't even recognize it. Don't be mad at them. They don't know. They can't see what it is. If they knew what it was, they would gather around. You just keep moving. Brother, you just keep moving, sister. I believe in you. I know you got this. But if you do nothing, if you really do nothing at all with regards to commerce and end-of-life preparations, get into trustee training. Link in the description. I'm back on point. You know, we're doing our dance again, so I will catch y'all next week for another episode of The Foundation. Y'all have a luxurious, most wonderful day. Enjoy your weekend. Be safe, most importantly. Love and hug your loved ones. Make sure you say 10 things that you're thankful for before you go to sleep tonight and every night. It's very important. Because it really is. And I'll catch y'all next week. Peace, y'all.